The last light on Maple Street. Story description: a heartwarming tale of unexpected kindness that transforms an entire neighborhood during the darkest of times, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of compassion can illuminate the path forward for everyone. Hashtags: #kindness matters, #community support, #heartwarming, #inspirational story, #human connection, #a neighborhood love, #compassion in action, #unexpected heroes, #small acts big impact, #help restored. Keywords: kindness, community, neighbors, compassion, selflessness, hope, transformation, human connection, generosity, second chances, friendship, resilience, small-town America, heartwarming, inspirational. The electricity had been out for 3 days when Sarah Martinez finally broke down and cried. Not the quiet tears she'd been holding back since losing her job 2 months ago, or the worried whimpers that escaped when she checked her dwindling bank account each morning. This was the ugly, shoulder-shaking kind of crying that comes when you realize you're completely alone in the world and there's nowhere left to fall. She sat in her dark kitchen, wrapped in every blanket she owned, watching her breath form small clouds in the freezing air. The February storm had knocked out power lines across 3 counties, but while her neighbors' generators hummed to life one by one, Sarah's house remained eerily silent. She couldn't afford a generator. Hell, she could barely afford the canned soup she'd been rationing for dinner. At 34, Sarah had never imagined she'd be here, unemployed, behind on rent, and too proud to ask her elderly neighbors for help. She'd moved to Maple Street 6 months ago, seeking a fresh start after her divorce, but had kept to herself, offering polite waves and nothing more. Now, as she listened to the muffled sounds of life continuing around her, 8 children laughing in warm houses, the distant hum of television sets, she wondered if anyone would even notice if she simply disappeared. A sharp knock at her door made her jump. Sarah wiped her eyes quickly, though she knew her red, puffy face would give her away. Through the peephole, she could see a small figure bundled in a bright yellow coat. "Mrs. Martinez?" The voice was high and sweet. "It's Emma from next door. My grandpa sent me over." Sarah opened the door to find 8-year-old Emma Chen standing on her porch, holding a steaming thermos and wearing the biggest smile Sarah had seen in months. "Grandpa says you might be cold," Emma said, thrusting the thermos forward. "He made extra hot chocolate, and Mom put mini marshmallows in it, the good kind that don't get soggy." Before Sarah could respond, Emma's grandfather appeared behind her, carrying a small space heater. "Harold Chen," he said with a gentle nod. "Noticed your house has been dark. This little heater runs on batteries. Might help take the edge off." Sarah stared at them, her throat tight. I can't accept this. I don't have any way to pay you back." Harold's weathered face crinkled into a smile. "Who said anything about paying back? Emma here has been worried about you. Keeps asking why the nice lady next door sits in the dark. Kids notice things we adults miss." Emma nodded solemnly. "Are you sad, Mrs. Martinez?" "You always look sad when you get your mail." The innocent observation hit Sarah like a physical blow. She had been sad, desperately, overwhelmingly sad, and apparently, it showed. But looking at this little girl's concerned face and her grandfather's kind eyes, something inside her chest began to crack open. "I'm a little sad," Sarah admitted, accepting the thermos. The warmth spread through her cold fingers immediately. "But this helps. Thank you both." "Grandpa says everyone needs help sometimes," Emma announced. "Even grown-ups. Even really tall grown-ups like you." That night, Sarah slept better than she had in weeks, the small heater humming softly beside her bed. But more than the physical warmth, It was the knowledge that someone had noticed her struggle and cared enough to act. The next morning brought another surprise. Sarah found a bag of groceries on her doorstep with a note. From the Johnson family. We have extra from our weekly shopping. Please don't feel obligated to return anything. We've all been where you are. By afternoon, more neighbors had appeared. Mrs. Patterson from across the street brought homemade bread, still warm from her gas oven. The Rodriguez family offered to let Sarah shower at their house anytime. The teenage boy from the corner house, whose name she'd never learned, shoveled her driveway without being asked. "Why is everyone being so kind?" Sarah asked Harold when he stopped by to check on the heater. "I barely know any of you." "I haven't exactly been neighborly." Harold settled into her kitchen chair, accepting the cup of hot chocolate she offered from Emma's thermos, which had somehow been mysteriously refilled that morning. "You want the truth?" Harold said. "Emma asked me why you looked so lonely. Made me realize we'd all been so busy with our own lives, we forgot to check on the new neighbor. Sometimes it takes a child to remind us how to be human." But the real surprise came the following day. Sarah had been job hunting on her phone, using the last of her battery, when Emma appeared at her door again, this time dragging a woman Sarah recognized from the grocery store. "This is my Aunt Lisa," Emma announced. "She owns the bookstore downtown, and I told her you're really smart and need a job." Lisa Cheney, clearly Harold's daughter, smiled apologetically. "I hope you don't mind Emma's direct approach, but I actually have been looking for someone to help manage the store. The pay isn't much, but it comes with health insurance and a small apartment above the shop if you're interested." Sarah stared at them, overwhelmed. "You don't even know me. What if I'm terrible at it? What if I steal from what if you're exactly what my store needs?" Lisa interrupted gently. "What if taking a chance on someone is exactly what this world needs more of?" 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in the bookstore's large front window, arranging a display of children's books. The late afternoon sun streamed through the glass, casting everything in golden light. She could see Maple Street from here, her former house where a nice young family had moved in, Harold's garden where he was teaching Emma to plant spring flowers, Mrs. Patterson walking her ancient dog who somehow had springs in his step again. The bell above the door chimed, and Emma burst in, backpack bouncing. Sarah, look what I made in art class." Emma held up a painting of a street with houses, each one glowing with warm yellow light. "It's Maple Street, but I made all the houses bright because that's how it feels now. Grandpa says it's because of you." "Because of me?" Sarah knelt down to Emma's eye level. "Sweetheart, I didn't do anything. You and your family, all our neighbors, you saved me." Emma shook her head seriously, her pigtails swinging. "Grandpa explained it. He said you gave everyone a chance to remember how good it feels to help people. He said sometimes people forget they have big hearts until someone needs them." That evening, Sarah walked home to her cozy apartment above the bookstore, but she took the long way around Maple Street. Through glowing windows, she could see the life she'd once envied: families gathered around dinner tables, children doing homework, couples sharing quiet moments. But now she was part of it, woven into the fabric of this community by threads of unexpected kindness. She paused in front of Harold's house, where warm light spilled from the living room window. Inside, she could see him reading to Emma, the little girl curled up beside him on the couch. As if sensing her presence, Emma looked up and waved enthusiastically through the glass. Sarah waved back, her heart full in a way she'd forgotten was possible. 6 months ago, she'd come to Maple Street broken and alone, seeking nothing more than a place to hide from her failures. Instead, she'd found something she hadn't even known she was looking for: a family she'd never expected, built from the simple human truth that kindness, once given freely, multiplies in ways that can transform everything. The streetlight flickered on above her head, casting a warm circle of light on the sidewalk. But Sarah knew the real illumination came from something much more powerful: the recognition that in a world that often felt dark and divided, there were still people like Harold and Emma, like Lisa and Mrs. Patterson, and all the neighbors who had seen her struggle and chosen compassion over indifference. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, Sarah made a quiet promise to herself. She would remember this feeling, this overwhelming gratitude for unexpected kindness. And more importantly, she would look for chances to pass it on, to be the light someone else needed when their world went dark. Because sometimes, she now understood, the most profound changes begin with the smallest acts of love: a thermos of hot chocolate, a bag of groceries, a child brave enough to ask why someone looks sad. These simple gestures, offered without expectation of return, have the power to transform not just individual lives, but entire communities, one act of kindness at a time. The last light on Maple Street wasn't a street lamp or a porch light. It was the warm glow that comes from hearts opened wide enough to let strangers become family, proving that even in the darkest moments, humanity's capacity for love can illuminate the path forward for everyone.